And let me tell you something about men who play games. There's a type of man out there who sees relationships as transactions, not connections. He's not in it for love, respect, or growth. He's in it for what he can take. And the worst part? He's smooth. He knows exactly what to say, how to act, and how to keep you second-guessing yourself. But here's the reality. If a man is using a woman, it's not as hidden as he wants you to believe. His behaviors, whether subtle or obvious, always give him away. You just have to know what to look for. Today, I'm going to break it down for you. 5 behaviors that expose a man who's only in it to take advantage of you. Listen closely because this is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. When a man is using a woman, one of the clearest signs is his emotional detachment. This isn't just about being distant, it's about a deliberate choice to withhold intimacy on a deeper level. A man who is emotionally detached doesn't invest in building a genuine connection. He keeps things surface level, ensuring that he never has to expose himself or his vulnerabilities. This isn't an accident. It's a calculated way to maintain control while minimizing his emotional risk. He avoids discussing meaningful topics or sharing anything about himself that could make him appear vulnerable. If you try to open up a conversation about feelings or long-term plans, he'll often shut it down, brush it off, or change the subject entirely. It's as if there's an invisible wall, and no matter how much effort you put into breaking through, he ensures it remains intact. Conversations with him often feel transactional. The further they go, the wall gets thicker. He ensures it remains intact. Conversations with him often feel transactional. He'll talk when he needs something or when it serves his purpose, but there's no real depth to those exchanges. You're left feeling like you're talking to someone who's there physically, but not emotionally. One of the most telling aspects of his emotional detachment is how he handles your emotions. A man who's using a woman will dismiss or minimize your feelings. When you're upset or need support, he either shows no interest or offers a response so shallow it feels like a formality. He might say something generic like, "Don't worry about it," or "You'll be fine," but there's no follow-up, no genuine concern for how you're actually feeling. This kind of behavior sends a clear message. Your emotions are not a priority to him. He's not invested in understanding you, comforting you, or being a pillar of support. Another tactic he uses is keeping you in a constant state of uncertainty. He doesn't let you feel secure in the relationship, because security would mean commitment, and commitment isn't part of his plan. He'll give you just enough attention to keep you hooked, but he never fully lets you in. It's a calculated push and pull. One moment he might seem affectionate, but the next he's cold and distant. This inconsistency is designed to keep you guessing and to make you work harder for his approval. It's a game to him, and your emotional confusion is part of his strategy. End quote. A man who's emotionally detached also avoids moments that require vulnerability. He's not the kind of person who will open up about his past, his fears, or his dreams. If he does share something personal, it's often surface level or carefully curated to manipulate your perception of him. He might tell you a story that paints him as a victim or a hero, but these moments are rare and always have a purpose. They're not about genuine connection. They're about creating an image that benefits him. Pay attention to how he handles affection. While he may be physically affectionate, it often lacks the emotional depth that comes with real intimacy. His touch, his compliments, and even his moments of closeness are fleeting and feel more like tactics than genuine expressions of care. It's like he's checking off a box to maintain the illusion of a relationship without actually putting in the emotional effort. He's also likely to avoid discussing the future. If you bring up long-term plans, whether it's something as simple as a vacation or as serious as marriage, he'll either evade the question or give a vague, non-committal answer. He might say, "Let's see how things go," or "I'm not ready to think that far ahead." These responses are designed to keep you in limbo. He's stringing you along without ever making a solid commitment, because in his mind, the relationship is temporary. Another sign of emotional detachment is his lack of interest in your life. He doesn't ask meaningful questions about your thoughts, your dreams, or your struggles. When you do share something personal, his reaction is often indifferent or dismissive. It's as if he's physically present but emotionally checked out. This lack of curiosity is a clear indicator that he's not invested in building a real connection with you. He's such an invested in building a real connection with you. Even in moments of conflict, his emotional detachment is evident. He doesn't fight fair or try to resolve issues. Instead, he might ignore the problem, deflect blame, or shut down completely. It's not about finding a solution or understanding your perspective. It's about maintaining his emotional distance and avoiding accountability. This behavior leaves you feeling unheard and unsupported, further reinforcing the imbalance in the relationship, reinforcing the false alliance. Over time, his emotional detachment can start to take a toll on your self-esteem. You may find yourself questioning your worth, wondering why he doesn't care as much as you do. This is exactly what he wants. By keeping you emotionally off balance, he ensures that you're constantly seeking his approval, which gives him the upper hand in the relationship. It's a form of control, and it's deeply manipulative. One of the clearest patterns you'll notice is his inconsistency. His actions rarely align with his words, and this lack of alignment is not accidental, it's strategic. A man like this thrives on keeping you guessing, creating just enough doubt and confusion to keep you invested. At first, his inconsistency might seem harmless or even excusable. He might be late to a date, cancel plans last minute, or forget something important you told him. But over time, these small instances build into a larger picture that reveals his true intentions. Inconsistent actions often start with his promises. He's the type of man who talks big, painting a vision of the future that sounds almost too good to be true. He'll say things like, "We're going to have an amazing life together," or "I've never met anyone like you." These words are designed to pull you in, to make you feel special and secure, but when it comes time to back those promises with real actions, he falls short. He might promise to introduce you to his friends or family, but weeks or months pass and it never happens. Or he'll say he'll make time for you, but when you need him the most, he's nowhere to be found. This inconsistency extends to how he shows affection. Some days he's attentive, showering you with compliments and making you feel like you're the center of his world. On those days, you start to believe that maybe he really does care, that maybe you're overthinking his past behavior. But then just as quickly he pulls away. He becomes distant, unresponsive, or even cold. This push and pull dynamic isn't accidental. It's a calculated way to keep you emotionally invested. He knows that by giving you small doses of affection, he can keep you hooked, always hoping for the next moment of closeness. Another area where his inconsistency shows is in his priorities. He might claim that you're important to him, but his actions tell a different story. When you need support or encouragement, he's suddenly busy or unavailable. But when he needs something from you, whether it's attention, validation, or a favor, he's quick to reach out. This one-sided dynamic is a red flag that his interest in the relationship is more about what he can gain than what he's willing to give. His communication is another glaring example of his inconsistency. He might start out texting you regularly, checking in throughout the day, and making you feel like you're on his mind. But as time goes on, his communication becomes sporadic. Days might pass without a word, and when you finally hear from him, he acts as if nothing's wrong. If you try to address the inconsistency, he'll either make excuses or turn the conversation around to make you feel like you're overreacting. This behavior is the deliberate way to avoid accountability while keeping you off balance. Social settings often highlight his inconsistency even further. In private, he might treat you like a priority, but in public, his behavior changes. He might act distant, avoid introducing you to important people in his life, or fail to acknowledge your relationship altogether. This contrast between his private and public personas is a clear indicator that he's not fully invested. It's as if he wants the benefits of being with you without the responsibility or commitment that comes with it. His inconsistency also shows in how he handles conflict. One moment he might apologize and promise to do better, convincing you that he genuinely cares about fixing the issue, but his actions rarely follow through. The same patterns of behavior resurface, leaving you feeling frustrated and disheartened. It's a cycle that repeats itself, keeping you trapped in a loop of hope and disappointment. Another sign of his inconsistency is how he prioritizes his time. He might claim to be too busy to spend quality time with you, but you'll notice he always seems to have time for his friends, hobbies, or other interests. When you question this imbalance, he'll often deflect or give vague excuses, making you feel guilty for even bringing it up. This selective prioritization is a clear indicator that you're not as important to him as he claims. Inconsistent actions also manifest in how he treats you compared to how he treats others. He might go out of his way to help a friend or impress a stranger, but when it comes to you, his efforts are minimal. This disparity creates a sense of confusion and self-doubt, making you wonder why you're not receiving the same level of care and attention. It's a subtle but powerful way to manipulate your emotions and keep you questioning your worth. Perhaps one of the most frustrating aspects of his inconsistency is the way he shifts his energy depending on his mood or needs. When he's feeling good or wants something from you, he's attentive, charming, and seemingly invested. But when he's preoccupied or no longer sees immediate value in engaging with you, his interest wanes. This erratic behavior leaves you feeling like you're walking on eggshells, never knowing what to expect or how to keep him engaged. But today, we are taking a different approach, and with us, if you're curious about your numbers, I'm not making this up. Manipulation and control become central to how he maintains power in the relationship. These tactics are often subtle, making them difficult to recognize at first, but over time they start to reveal a pattern that is both intentional and damaging. A man who manipulates and controls does so to keep the upper hand, ensuring the dynamic always tilts in his favor. They enforce this. He doesn't seek equality or partnership, he seeks dominance. And he achieves it by playing with your emotions, distorting your reality, and ensuring you feel dependent on him. One of the primary ways he manipulates is through guilt. He knows how to twist situations so that you feel responsible for things that aren't your fault. If you bring up concerns about his behavior, he'll flip the script, making you feel like you're overreacting or being unreasonable. He might say things like, "Why do you always have to make a big deal out of nothing?" Or, "You're too sensitive." These statements aren't just dismissive. They're designed to make you doubt your own feelings and instincts. Over time, this creates a dynamic where you hesitate to express yourself, fearing that you'll be labeled as the problem. Control also comes in the form of how he frames the narrative of the relationship. He dictates the pace, the tone, and the terms of your interactions. If he wants to keep things casual, he'll emphasize the need to go with the flow, or avoid putting labels on the relationship. However, if you express a desire for clarity or commitment, he'll make you feel like you're rushing things or being too demanding. This keeps you in a state of uncertainty, always questioning where you stand and whether you're asking for too much. Gaslighting is another weapon in his arsenal. He'll distort the truth, deny things he said or done, and make you question your own memory and perception. For example, if you confront him about a broken promise or inconsistent behavior, he might deny it outright, saying, "I never said that," or "You must have misunderstood." Over time, this tactic erodes your confidence in your ability to trust yourself, making you more reliant on him for validation and clarity. This psychological manipulation is a powerful way to maintain control without appearing overtly abusive. Isolation is another tool he uses to assert control. He may subtly discourage you from spending time with friends or family, framing it as concern for your well-being or the relationship. He might say things like, "I just want us to have more time together," or "Your friends don't really understand you like I do." At first, this might seem caring, but over time it becomes clear that his goal is to limit your support network. His purpose alters your needs and creates divisions. If your friends don't respect you, they will limit your support network. By isolating you, he ensures that you have fewer people to turn to for advice or perspective, making it easier for him to maintain his influence over you. Financial control can also play a role in his manipulation tactics. If he's in a position of financial power, he might use money as a way to exert influence over your choices and behavior. He could frame his financial support as generosity, but it comes with strings attached. For example, he might insist on paying for everything, only to later use it against you by saying things like, "I do so much for you, and this is how you repay me." This creates a dynamic where you feel indebted to him, making it harder to challenge his authority or leave the relationship. Another aspect of his manipulation is how he creates a sense of dependence. He might position himself as the only person who truly understands or supports you, reinforcing the idea that you need him in your life. If you express frustration or consider leaving, he'll employ tactics to pull you back in, such as making dramatic promises to change or appealing to your emotions with statements like, "You're the only one who makes me feel this way." These moments are calculated to keep you emotionally tethered even when his behavior doesn't align with his words. Jealousy and possessiveness can also be forms of manipulation disguised as care. He might monitor your interactions with others, question your motives, or accuse you of being disloyal. While he frames these actions as signs of love or concern, they're actually about control. By making you feel guilty or defensive, he ensures that your attention and focus remain on him, reducing your freedom and autonomy. He also uses flattery and charm as tools of manipulation. At times, he'll shower you with compliments and affection, making you feel special and valued. This creates a stark contrast with his moments of neglect or criticism, keeping you emotionally off balance. The highs and lows of this dynamic are addictive, making it difficult to break free from the cycle. You find yourself holding on to the good moments, hoping they'll outweigh the bad, even as the pattern continues to repeat itself. Boundaries are another area where his control becomes evident. He pushes against your limits, testing how far he can go without facing consequences. If you set a boundary, he'll either ignore it or find ways to subtly undermine it, making you feel like your boundaries are unreasonable or unnecessary. This gradual erosion of your limits is a way for him to assert dominance while making you feel complicit in the process. In this, subtle threats or ultimatums are also common. He might imply that the relationship will end if you don't meet his expectations or conform to his desires. While he may not explicitly say, "do this or I'll leave," his actions and words create an underlying tension that makes you feel like you're constantly at risk of losing him. This keeps you in a state of fear and compliance, prioritizing his needs over your own to avoid conflict or rejection. One of the most glaring signs is his self-centeredness. Everything in the relationship revolves around him, his needs, his desires, his goals, and his comfort. It's not that he occasionally prioritizes himself, which is normal for anyone, but that he consistently places his interests above all else, often at the expense of the woman he's with. Ending quote. This self-absorbed behavior isn't just a personality trait. It's a deliberate strategy to ensure that the relationship serves his agenda while requiring minimal effort or sacrifice on his part. A self-centered man rarely, if ever, considers the needs or feelings of the woman he's with. In conversations, he dominates the dialogue, steering topics back to himself no matter what the initial subject was. If you share something personal or meaningful, he'll often respond in a way that shifts the focus back to his experiences or opinions. For example, if you talk about a challenge you're facing, he might immediately recount a story of how he handled something similar, making it about him instead of offering support or empathy. Over time, this behavior creates an unbalanced dynamic, where your voice feels diminished and his feels amplified. And the self-centeredness extends to how he handles time and effort within the relationship. Plans are almost always based on his schedule, his convenience, and his preferences. If you suggest something that doesn't align with his interests, he'll find excuses to avoid it or dismiss it altogether. When he does agree to do something for you, it's often framed as a major favor, even if it's something simple or reasonable. This makes you feel like you're asking for too much, even when you're not. The relationship starts to feel one-sided, with you constantly accommodating his needs while your own are overlooked or minimized. He also demonstrates self-centeredness through his lack of reciprocity. In healthy relationships, both partners invest in each other emotionally, physically, and mentally. But with a self-centered man, this balance doesn't exist. He expects you to be there for him when he's stressed, to listen to his problems, and to boost his ego when he's feeling down. Yet when the roles are reversed, his support is either absent or half-hearted. If you confront him about this imbalance, he'll often downplay your concerns or turn the conversation around, making it seem like you're being overly demanding or ungrateful for what little he does offer. Remember that your ability to lead and to contribute to success in business is the very reason that you're there in the first place. Another clear sign of his self-centeredness is his inability to take criticism or responsibility. When things go wrong, he's quick to blame external factors or even you, but he rarely acknowledges his own role in the problem. If you point out his shortcomings or express dissatisfaction, he may react defensively or dismissively, accusing you of being too critical or difficult. This inability to accept accountability further reinforces the idea that the relationship revolves around his comfort and ego, with little room for growth or mutual understanding. In moments of conflict, his self-centered nature becomes even more apparent. Rather than addressing the issue at hand or trying to find a resolution, he focuses on how the situation affects him personally. If you're upset about something he did, he might shift the conversation to how your reaction is inconveniencing him, or making him feel bad. This deflection not only avoids resolving the conflict, but also places the burden of emotional labor squarely on your shoulders, leaving you feeling unheard and unsupported. His self-centeredness also manifests in his lack of gratitude or appreciation. No matter how much effort you put into the relationship, whether it's planning dates, supporting his goals, or simply being there for him, he treats it as something he's entitled to rather than something he should value. Compliments or acknowledgments are rare, and when they do occur, they often feel insincere or obligatory. And when they do occur, this lack of recognition can leave you feeling unappreciated and undervalued, further highlighting the imbalance in the relationship. Materialistic tendencies can also be a part of his self-centered behavior. He might expect you to contribute to his lifestyle, whether it's through financial support, gifts, or acts of service, but he rarely, if ever, reciprocates. Even if he does give something back, it's often done in a way that benefits him more than it benefits you. For example, he might buy you a gift that he likes or that serves his interests rather than something that reflects your tastes or desires. This transactional approach to giving reinforces the idea that the relationship is centered around his needs and wants. His interactions with others can provide additional insight into his self-centeredness. He might treat people based on what they can do for him, showing kindness or charm when it benefits him, but quickly losing interest if there's nothing to gain. This same attitude extends to the relationship, where his actions are often calculated to maximize his own benefit while minimizing his effort. Loneliness, he might put on a facade of generosity or care, but it's often superficial and motivated by how it serves his image or agenda. Even in moments that should be about you, such as a celebration, achievement, or personal milestone, he finds ways to make it about himself. He might overshadow your accomplishments with his own stories or seek validation for how he contributed to your success, even if his involvement was minimal. This constant need to center himself in every situation diminishes your individuality and reinforces the imbalance of the relationship. Self-centeredness can also affect your self-esteem over time. By consistently prioritizing his needs while neglecting yours, he creates an environment where you start to question your worth and whether you're deserving of more. This dynamic isn't just about his personality. It's a deliberate way to keep you focused on meeting his needs while ignoring your own, ensuring that the relationship remains unbalanced and firmly under his control. One of the most telling behaviors is his consistent avoidance of accountability. This pattern is a deliberate effort to sidestep responsibility for his actions, words, and choices, ensuring that he can operate without facing the consequences of his behavior. Avoiding accountability is not just a passive characteristic. It is often an intentional strategy to deflect blame, maintain control, and keep the relationship focused on his needs, while minimizing any obligations or sacrifices on his part. A man who avoids accountability often has a way of shifting blame. If you confront him about something he did, whether it's breaking a promise, showing disrespect, or neglecting the relationship, he's quick to point fingers elsewhere. He might blame his past, his stress, his upbringing, or even you, turning the focus away from his own actions. For example, if he forgets something important to you, he may say, "I've just been so busy lately." Or, "You know how bad I am with dates." While these excuses might seem reasonable in isolation, over time, they reveal a pattern of deflection. Instead of taking ownership, he creates a narrative that absolves him of responsibility while placing the burden on external factors or on you. Gaslighting is another tactic he uses to avoid accountability. When you bring up concerns or point out inconsistencies in his behavior, he may deny them outright, making you question your memory or perception. He'll say things like, "I never said that," or "You're imagining things," to create doubt in your mind. By distorting the reality of events, he shifts the focus away from his actions and onto your supposed misunderstandings. He will say, "Whatever you suppose misunderstandings," if it's over time, this can erode your confidence in your own judgment, making it harder to hold him accountable in the future. Another hallmark of his avoidance of accountability is his use of emotional manipulation. If you try to address his behavior, he might respond with exaggerated emotions to distract you or make you feel guilty. He might act hurt, saying things like, "I can't believe you think so little of me," or "Why are you always picking on me?" This shifts the dynamic from addressing the issue at hand to reassuring him, effectively diverting the conversation away from his actions. This tactic ensures that you're the one doing the emotional labor, even when he's the one at fault. Minimizing or trivializing your concerns is another way he evades accountability. If you express frustration or disappointment, he may downplay the situation, making it seem like you're overreacting. He might say, "It's not that big of a deal," or "You're blowing this out of proportion." By invalidating your feelings, he avoids taking the issue seriously, leaving you feeling unheard and dismissed. Over time, this dynamic creates a sense of futility, where you stop bringing up concerns because you know they'll be minimized or ignored. Inconsistent behavior is another way he sidesteps accountability. He might alternate between being attentive and neglectful, making it difficult to pinpoint his true intentions. For instance, if he's caught in a lie or betrayal, he might suddenly become overly affectionate or generous, temporarily masking the problem. This inconsistency creates confusion, making you question whether the issue is worth addressing or whether you're simply misinterpreting his action. By keeping you off balance, he ensures that you're less likely to demand accountability or hold him to a standard of consistent behavior. A man who avoids accountability also tends to reject constructive feedback or criticism. Instead of listening and reflecting on what you're saying, he becomes defensive or dismissive. He might accuse you of being too critical, too demanding, or too sensitive, turning the focus back on you. This deflection not only avoids addressing the issue, but also creates a dynamic where you start to doubt whether your concerns are valid. Remember, a man who avoids accountability, a man who avoids striving for something, is one who creates a dynamic where you start to doubt whether your concerns are valid. Over time, this erodes your confidence in addressing problems, leaving him free to continue his behavior unchecked. Another tactic he employs is to avoid clarity or commitment in the relationship. When you seek to define boundaries, set expectations, or clarify his intentions, he remains vague or non-committal. He might say things like, "Let's just see where this goes," or "Why do we have to label things?" This lack of clarity allows him to avoid accountability for his role in the relationship, giving him the freedom to act in ways that benefit him without facing the consequences of unmet expectations. By keeping the relationship undefined, he ensures that he can evade any responsibility for how his actions affect you. Selective memory is another strategy he uses to dodge accountability. He conveniently forgets conversations, promises, or commitments that don't serve his agenda. For example, if you remind him of something he agreed to do, he might respond with, "I don't remember saying that," or "Are you sure we talked about that?" This tactic not only invalidates your experience, but also makes it harder to hold him to his word. Then again, if you were to look back to build the trust, then you can use that as an excuse. This retraining shapes him. Over time, this creates an environment where his commitments feel unreliable, and you're left second-guessing yourself. He may also use humor or charm to deflect accountability. When confronted, he might laugh off serious issues or use jokes to diffuse tension. While this might lighten the mood temporarily, it ultimately avoids addressing the root of the problem. His charm can also make it difficult to stay mad at him, as he uses charisma to win you over and distracts you from holding him accountable. This tactic ensures that he remains in control of the dynamic, keeping you focused on his positive traits rather than the negative behavior that needs to be addressed. One of the most insidious aspects of his avoidance of accountability is how he frames himself as the victim. If his actions hurt you or cause conflict, he may twist the narrative to make it seem like he's the one who's been wronged. He might say things like, "I feel like I can't do anything right with you," or "No matter what I do, it's never enough." This shifts the focus from his behavior to your expectations, making you feel guilty for even bringing up the issue. This tactic not only avoids accountability, but also reinforces his control by making you question whether you're being unfair or unreasonable. In conclusion, when a man is using a woman, his behaviors are not subtle. They are deliberate actions meant to maintain control, avoid responsibility, and prioritize his needs over hers. From emotional detachment and inconsistent actions to manipulation, self-centeredness, and avoidance of accountability, these behaviors serve one purpose: to keep the woman in a position of dependency while allowing him to operate without consequences. Recognizing these patterns is crucial, as they reveal the true nature of the relationship and highlight the importance of self-respect and establishing boundaries to protect one's emotional well-being and sense of self.